I'm going to show you how to draw lips with graphite pencil. The first thing I'm going to do is draw a horizontal line, and this is a slightly downwards pointing horizontal line. This is going to be the line separating the top and bottom lip. Although I'm drawing a downward facing line, it can vary dramatically based on the mouth that you're drawing. The mouth I'm drawing is quite a relaxed mouth, and because of the shape of her lips, this is downward facing. But have a look at the mouth that you're trying to draw. If you're trying to draw your own mouth, have a look and make different faces in the mirror and see which direction the line goes. Now I'm happy with the direction of my line, I'm just going to draw a vertical line going down the centre and then go over my horizontal line a little bit darker. I find it helpful to put in a line down the centre. It will just help me ensure that my lips are as symmetrical as they can possibly be. I'm just going to slightly tweak the line on the right. I think it can be improved. The goal here is to try and get the line as symmetrical as possible. So I'm just going to change my line a little bit and rub out where I'm not happy. So now on both sides, I'm just going to do a little flick up at the ends. This is the corner of the mouth where the lips blend into the cheeks. And I'll just do this side to match. Okay, so now we're going to draw in our bottom lip. We can use the markings we've already got on the paper to work out roughly where the bottom lip should go. So if you can imagine a line that goes from here to here, this gap should roughly be doubled. And that's where we're going to put our mark for the bottom lip. So starting from that marker, I'm just going to draw a gentle line that's going to end just beyond that flick that we drew earlier for the corner. Obviously, if you're doing a different expression, it's going to change the shape of the mouth and the width of the lips. If you're struggling with mapping out the facial proportions, I've made a video showing you how you can do this easily from a photo. I've popped a link in the description. Okay, I'm happy with that side. Now I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side, trying to keep it as symmetrical as I possibly can. Any bits I'm not happy with, I'm just going to make a new line and lightly rub out the old one. This is where making very light marks really helps you. So, I learnt a new word today. Apparently the dip in the middle of your top lip is called the philtrum. So, to draw the top lip from the central line to the philtrum, it's just a little less than the distance from the bottom line to the middle line. Now we've got this point, we can draw out the V on the top lip. Everyone's V is a little bit different. Some are quite angular, some are very curved. I'm just going to draw a gentle curve of a V on the top here. Now I'm happy with my V, I'm going to pop another little one above it and I'll be able to use that later to add in a shadow. And then I'm going to bring both sides down, keeping it symmetrical. As I bring these lines down, I'm not going down in a perfectly straight line, it is slightly curved. I'm still trying to keep it as symmetrical as I can, but as you can see, it's not perfect, so don't worry too much about it. The last bit of our sketch is just drawing in the corners of the mouth. So the bottom of the line that we just did, we're just going to level that out at the end here and then do a straight line down, and we'll cover it up with our shading. I'm going to do that on both sides. Now I'm generally happy with this sketch. I'm just going to rub out that central line and then we can get on with some shading. So step one with the shading, I like to get a nice solid base down. For the sketch, I've been using a B pencil and I'm going to carry on using this B pencil to get down this base layer. To put down the base layer, I'm going to use the side of the pencil and I'm just going to apply very light pressure. Using the side of the pencil instead of the tip, you get more even coverage and you don't end up with that scratchy look. You can see there's a couple of areas that I've purposefully left white. There's a little area in the middle of the bottom lip and a little bit on the top lip to the left. This is where I want the particularly bright areas of shine to go. They won't stay perfectly white though, which you'll see when I blend it in a second. Now let's blend it out. There's loads of different ways to blend, but here I am using a folded up piece of tissue. The purpose of blending is to smooth out our base layer, and you can see here what a difference it makes. I'm doing this quite softly with little circles so that it all gets blended out equally. Equally? Is equally the word I'm looking for? Evenly, so it gets blended out evenly. Dear. Now I can start adding the first few bits of detail. I'm still doing this with the B pencil, and the first thing I'm doing is starting to make the centre line a little bit darker. You'll notice that I'm not making the line on the centre of the lips perfectly straight, it's got little bumps and ridges. This helps to add to the realism that we're aiming for. Now I'm starting to shade lightly above that central line and add some lines going up. When you think about the shape of lips, they don't just sit flat on your face. They're sort of rounded and protrude out a bit. If you imagine the lips as sort of two tubes, the area in the middle would be darker because there would be a shadow in there, and that's what we're trying to recreate here. So while remembering that, it's also worth noting that lips aren't perfectly smooth. They have little lines that run up through them. So I'm going to start putting those little lines on as I shade above that line. I don't want to be too uniform when I do this. I want them to be pretty random. I'm going to add a little bit of shading to the right hand side towards the corner of the mouth, and then start adding some lines and shading on the left side as well. When adding shading, you want to remember that making something darker pushes it back and making it lighter brings it forward. The corners of the mouth are further back than the front, so we want to make sure that they're darker. Let's just speed through this and we'll have a look at the bottom lip. In a similar way to the top lip, we want just underneath that centre line to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to start off by just shading with the side of my pencil here. The other area that I want to be darker and to push back on the picture is right underneath that bottom lip. As I go here, I'm also going to start adding some lines to add some texture to this bottom lip. When you draw the lines, remember that you need to draw them with the curvature of the lip. When you're doing this, think of brackets. Towards the left, it should be open brackets, and towards the right, it should be closed brackets. Now, exactly like I did earlier, I'm going to blend that out with a tissue again. Do make sure that your tissue isn't dirty though. You want a clean piece of tissue or it'll just end up as a big smudgy mess. You may have wondered why I'm bothering with the lines when I'm just blending it out and it softens them so much. Realism is all about creating layers, and although it looks like they've mostly disappeared, they are still there and they will add an extra dimension to the lips. Now I'm happy with my blending, I'm going to change up to a darker pencil. I'm using a 6B. You could carry on using the same pencil and pressing a little bit harder, but you will get better results if you use a softer pencil. So here I'm adding more lines in like I did before, but they're coming through darker. I'm making that lip line stronger and having little lines coming up from it to add in wrinkles. As I'm doing this, I'm also increasing the shadow just above that line. The key when you're adding the lines onto the lips is to not be too regimented and precise. You want to kind of be a little bit random in your approach with it. The same as I did before, I'm making sure that the corners of the lips are a little bit darker than it is in the centre. I'm doing very similar as I did for the top lip on the bottom lip. Have a good look at the direction that I'm doing those lines in and see how it's starting to create that three-dimensional look. The lines in the centre are much closer to straight than as we get towards the edge. It's worth mentioning that this part of the process is the part that I spent the most time on. I'm just going to darken up that bottom line again and then give it a gentle blend. You'll notice that this time as I blend, I'm going in the direction of the lines that I've made rather than blending in a circle. I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of shading just above that V that I made at the top there and blend that as well. Now I'm going through exactly the same process again, still with the 6B, making all the lines a little bit darker and a little bit firmer. With the darker lines, you can really see it starting to pop now and really start looking three-dimensional. You'll notice that the areas that I left white at the very beginning are still visible. This is a very good example of how layers work with graphite pencil. Even though I've drawn over them, they are still there, and all of these layers work together to make a 3D realistic looking drawing. We're so nearly at the end now. So for this bit, I've made sure that my pencil is nice and sharp, and I'm still using the 6B pencil. I'm using my freshly sharpened pencil to make firmer marks now on the lips. By making sharper lines, it creates the illusion of deeper creases. That, combined with all of the previous lines we've done that have been blended out, it looks like there's shallow creases and deep creases like you see on actual lips. I'm going to just add to that centre line a little bit more and make it a little bit darker, and then I'm going to do a very light blend with the clean bit of a tissue. And now we're on to my favourite part and the final step. This is where we pick out the little flecks of light with an eraser. I'm using a putty eraser for this. I find with a putty eraser you can mould it into a nice thin shape, and you can use that to make thin lines. Now I'm using that to remove some of the graphite in between the lines that I've been making. So I'm doing a little bit on the top left, tiny bit on the top right, and then quite a bit on the bottom lip in the middle. I find this is where it really comes to life. And that's it. If you found this video helpful, give it a like. If you'd like to see more art tips and tutorials, click the subscribe button and the notify bell. Happy drawing, guys. I'll see you in the next one.